Hey folks, welcome back to Stoic Relationships. Have you ever found yourself in the middle of a silent standoff? That moment when you're trying the no-contact approach to regain your balance, but then you realize they're doing the same thing. It's like you're stuck in an unspoken tug-of-war, both refusing to break the silence. Frustrating, isn't it? You start to wonder, are they even thinking about me? Are they waiting for me to make the first move? Or have they completely moved on? If you've ever asked yourself these questions, you're not alone. Silence, while powerful, can also feel like an echo chamber of doubt. But here's the truth. This situation isn't about who caves first. It's about rediscovering your own strength and detaching from the need for validation from someone else. Whether it's a romantic partner, a close friend, or even a family member, moments like these force us to confront some deep truths about ourselves and our relationships. Stoic philosophy teaches us that we can't control others, only ourselves. That silence from the other side. It might feel deafening, but it's not about you. It's about them, their choices, and their journey. And the best part? You have more power in this situation than you think. Instead of letting their silence become a source of frustration, you can use it as an opportunity to grow, reflect, and even regain control of your emotions. In today's video, we're diving into a question that so many of you have asked. What if they're also doing no contact with me? Together, we'll explore 7 powerful insights that will help you not just survive this situation, but thrive in it. These aren't quick fixes or shallow tips. They're grounded in timeless Stoic principles that encourage strength, grace, and emotional independence. We'll uncover why you're not responsible for their silence, why this isn't a game you're trying to win, and how to stop letting the situation consume your thoughts. More importantly, we'll discuss how your silence can speak volumes and why every day of no contact is actually a step toward victory for you. We'll also tackle a question that might keep you up at night. What if they never reach out again? And finally, we'll end with the liberating truth that real freedom comes when you let go, not just of them, but of the power they have over your peace of mind. By the end of this video, you'll walk away with a clear mindset and actionable steps to handle the silence, no matter how loud it feels. So stick around, because what we're about to discuss might just change how you see this whole no-contact dynamic. You're stronger than you think, and today we're going to prove it. Let's get started. Number 1. You're not responsible for their silence. Hey folks, let's get into this together. How many of you have felt the weight of someone's silence? Maybe it's that ex you thought you'd moved on from, or a friend who suddenly stopped responding. You sit there, staring at your phone, replaying every conversation in your head, wondering if it's something you said, something you did. The silence feels like a mirror, reflecting all your insecurities back at you. But here's the truth. Their silence isn't your responsibility, and it's time to let that weight go. Let's break this down. When someone chooses silence, it's usually more about them than it is about you. It could be their way of processing emotions, dealing with stress, or avoiding vulnerability. Maybe they don't have the tools to communicate effectively, or maybe they're using silence as a form of control. None of these scenarios are your burden to bear. Their silence belongs to them, not you. Here's an idea to hold on to. Silence is often a way for people to create space for themselves. That space can be for reflection, healing, or even avoidance. Whatever the reason, it's their choice. And it's not your job to fill that space with answers or apologies. When you start feeling the urge to fix things or to reach out just to make sure they're okay, pause. Ask yourself, am I trying to fix something that's not mine to fix? Imagine this. You're walking along a peaceful path, enjoying the view. Suddenly, someone you care about stops walking beside you. They don't explain why. They just stand still. Your instinct might be to turn back, grab their hand, and pull them forward. But what if their journey requires them to stop and take in their surroundings, or maybe even change direction entirely? Does your progress have to halt just because theirs does? Let me tell you something personal. I once found myself in a similar situation. A close friend stopped returning my calls and messages. At first, I thought I had done something wrong, so I sent long texts, apologizing for anything I might have done, even though I wasn't sure what it was. But the silence continued, and with it, my frustration and self-doubt grew. One day, I realized I was fighting a battle that wasn't mine. Their silence wasn't about me. It was their way of dealing with their own challenges. And by trying to force a response, I was ignoring my own boundaries. Here's what I learned. Chasing someone's silence only undermines your value. It sends the message that their approval or acknowledgement is more important than your self-respect. Instead, I decided to hold my ground. I stopped overthinking their silence and focused on what I could control, my own peace and well-being. And guess what? That decision didn't just free me. It also taught me that relationships built on mutual effort, not one-sided chasing, are the ones worth keeping. Let's talk about relationships, especially romantic ones, because silence often feels even heavier in that context. When someone you care about goes silent, it's easy to interpret it as rejection. But here's the truth. Silence doesn't mean rejection. It means uncertainty, reflection, or even confusion. Giving them the space to work through their silence without interference shows maturity and confidence. It says, I trust myself enough to wait, and I trust you enough to let you handle your own emotions. If you're struggling with someone's silence right now, here's a tip. Change the narrative you're telling yourself. Instead of thinking, what did I do wrong? I try reframing it to, their silence reflects their journey, not my worth. This shift in perspective can be transformative. You stop taking their behavior personally and start focusing on what truly matters, your own peace and self-worth. Think of it this way. Your life is like a masterpiece, and every moment is a brushstroke. Don't let someone else's silence smudge the canvas. Let it be a part of their painting, while you continue to create something beautiful and vibrant for yourself. The time you spend agonizing over their silence is time you could be using to grow, to explore, and to thrive. And here's something powerful to remember. Silence can be a teacher. It teaches patience, emotional independence, and the ability to find peace within yourself. When you stop trying to fix someone else's silence, you reclaim your power. You show yourself and others that your value isn't dependent on anyone else's behavior. If this resonates with you, drop a quick comment below that says, I choose peace. And let's affirm together that we're not here to carry the weight of someone else's silence. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next steps in this journey. Stay with me, folks, because what we're diving into next will shift how you see these situations forever. Number 2, it's not a game of who wins. Let's be honest. When you're in a situation where someone is ignoring you or matching your silence with theirs, it can feel like a game. You might find yourself thinking, if I break first, they'll think I've lost. It's easy to get caught in this mindset. But here's the truth. Relationships aren't about winning or losing. They're about connection, respect, and mutual growth. Turning silence into a competition only feeds ego, not understanding. Picture this. 2 people are locked in a silent standoff, each waiting for the other to speak first. Both feel frustrated, but neither wants to lose face. What's the result? The silence deepens, resentment grows, and the connection suffers. Instead of bridging the gap, This mindset builds a wall. But let's be clear, relationships that rely on competition can never thrive. Love, respect, and trust aren't won in battles. They're nurtured in moments of humility and openness. So why do we fall into this trap? Part of it comes from our fear of vulnerability. Reaching out feels like admitting weakness, and we've been taught that vulnerability is something to avoid. But here's the twist. Vulnerability isn't weakness, it's strength. It's a sign that you value the relationship enough to risk discomfort. The real question isn't who will win, it's what does this relationship mean to me, and how can I approach it with authenticity? Let's shift the focus for a moment. Imagine you're dealing with silence in a romantic relationship. Maybe it's your partner who's gone quiet, and you feel like every second you wait to hear from them is a point against you. It's tempting to think that whoever reaches out first loses, but let's rethink this. If the relationship matters, reaching out isn't losing, it's leading. It's taking a step toward resolution instead of letting pride keep you stuck. Here's an example. A friend of mine once found herself in this exact scenario. Her partner had stopped responding to her texts, and she felt stuck. Should she wait it out, or should she break the silence? She decided to send a simple message, not to plead or apologize, but to express her feelings and invite a conversation. The response wasn't immediate, but when it came, it was full of relief and gratitude. Her partner admitted he'd been unsure how to reach out, fearing rejection. Her decision to lead with vulnerability broke the cycle and strengthened their bond. This doesn't mean you should always be the one to reach out. There's a difference between showing vulnerability and chasing someone who consistently disregards your value. The key is balance. You're not responsible for fixing everything, but you also don't need to let pride hold you back when the relationship is worth saving. Here's another layer to consider. The game mindset often comes from our own insecurities. When we view silence as a contest, it's because we're tying our worth to the other person's actions. If they reach out first, we feel validated. If they don't, we feel rejected. But what if your worth wasn't tied to anyone else's behavior? What if you could step out of the game entirely? This mindset shift is where true emotional freedom begins. Let's take this a step further. Instead of focusing on who wins, focus on the bigger picture. What do you want from this relationship? Is it understanding, respect, connection? If so, silence as a strategy won't get you there. You can't build a bridge while simultaneously building walls. It's not about scoring points. It's about creating an environment where both people feel safe to communicate and grow. If you're feeling stuck in a silent standoff, here's an approach to try. Take a moment to reflect on your intentions. Are you waiting out of pride, or are you genuinely unsure how to proceed? If it's the latter, consider taking a small step forward. It doesn't have to be dramatic. A simple, honest message like, "I've noticed we haven't talked much lately, and I'd like to understand why," can open the door without making you feel like you've lost. Remember, stepping out of the game mindset isn't about conceding defeat. It's about reclaiming your peace. It's about refusing to let ego dictate your actions and choosing instead to prioritize authenticity. Whether the relationship deepens or ends, you'll know you approached it with integrity. Let me ask you this. How many times have you held back because you didn't want to appear weak? What if, instead of focusing on appearances, you focused on your values? Share your thoughts in the comments with just 2 words. I value growth. Let's affirm together that relationships aren't about winning. They're about evolving, together or apart. Stay tuned, because in the next segment, we'll explore how to stop letting silence take control of your emotions. Number 3, stop letting it get to you. Let's face it, when someone goes silent or pulls away, it's hard not to take it personally. It feels like a rejection, like you've done something wrong or that you're not enough. But here's the truth. Their silence is rarely about you. Often, it's about their own struggles, insecurities, or need for space. The moment you realize this, you can free yourself from the emotional grip of their actions. Think about this. Why do we let someone's silence or withdrawal bother us so much? It's because we're hardwired to seek connection. When that connection is disrupted, it triggers our anxiety and self-doubt. But here's the thing. You don't have to stay in that emotional spiral. The power lies in how you interpret their behavior and, most importantly, how you choose to respond. Imagine this scenario. You send a heartfelt message, and instead of a response, you're met with days of silence. At first, your mind races. Did I say something wrong? Are they upset with me? These thoughts consume your energy and distract you from what really matters, your peace of mind. But what if you could shift your perspective? What if you could see their silence as neutral, not as an attack on your worth? Here's a mindset shift that can help. Stop trying to control what's beyond your influence. You can't force someone to communicate. You can't dictate how they handle their emotions or their silence. What you can control is your reaction. Instead of internalizing their behavior, remind yourself that their actions are not a reflection of your value. Let me share a story. A friend of mine was dealing with a breakup. Her ex had gone completely silent, and she couldn't stop replaying their last conversation in her mind. She spent weeks analyzing every word, trying to figure out what she'd done wrong. But one day, she had a breakthrough. She realized she was giving away her power by letting his silence dictate her emotions. She made a decision. Instead of focusing on what he wasn't saying, she would focus on herself. She started journaling, spending time with friends, and rediscovering her passions. Over time, his silence stopped mattering because she had shifted the spotlight back onto her own life. This isn't just about romantic relationships. The same principle applies to friends, family, or colleagues. If someone's behavior is affecting you, ask yourself, is this about them or is it about me? If it's about them, let it go. Their silence is their choice, not your responsibility. If it's about you, take it as an opportunity to reflect and grow. But don't let it define your sense of self-worth. Here's a practical step. Every time you feel bothered by someone's silence, redirect your focus. Start with a simple question. What can I do right now to bring joy or peace into my life? It could be as small as taking a walk, reading a book, or calling a friend. The goal is to reclaim your energy and use it for something that uplifts you, rather than letting it spiral into frustration or doubt. Another strategy? Set boundaries, not just with them, but with your own thoughts. It's easy to let your mind wander into what-if territory, but when you catch yourself doing that, pause and refocus. Remind yourself, I'm not responsible for their silence, and I won't let it rob me of my peace. Repeat this as often as you need to. Over time, it will become second nature. Let's talk about why this matters. When you stop letting silence or other people's actions get to you, you reclaim control over your emotional well-being. You send a powerful message, not just to them, but to yourself. You're saying, I respect myself enough to not be defined by someone else's behavior. So, this shift in mindset doesn't just make you stronger, it makes you magnetic. People are drawn to those who exude calm and confidence, even in the face of uncertainty. So, here's your challenge. The next time someone's silence starts to bother you, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what does this say about me? The answer is simple. Nothing. Their actions are theirs alone, and you are so much more than their response, or lack of one. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Share 3 words in the comments that describe how you maintain your peace. And if this resonated with you, stick around, because the next part of this journey will help you harness the power of silence in a way that speaks volumes. Stay tuned. Number 4. Your silence is saying more than words. Hey folks, let's talk about silence. One of the most underrated yet profoundly powerful tools in any relationship. Think about it. In a world that's always noisy, always rushing to fill every gap with words, silence stands out. It's not just the absence of noise, it's a message, a choice, a boundary. And when you master the art of silence, you communicate with a strength that no words can rival. Let's break this down. Imagine a situation where someone challenges or provokes you. Maybe it's a heated argument, or perhaps it's a subtle but cutting comment meant to unsettle you. Your instinct might be to snap back, to defend yourself, to prove your point. But here's the twist. Silence can often be a louder and more commanding response than any rebuttal. When you choose silence, you're saying, I don't need to justify myself to you. My peace is more valuable than this moment of conflict. That's the kind of unshakable confidence that draws respect. Silence puts the focus back on the other person, forcing them to confront their own behavior. It creates a moment of reflection that no amount of explanation can match. This applies not just to confrontations, but also to emotional situations in relationships. Let's say someone you care about is pulling away or acting distant. It's tempting to fill the gap with words, to ask why, to try to fix things, to overcompensate. But sometimes, your silence speaks volumes. It tells them, I see what's happening, but I'm not going to chase or force this. It shifts the dynamic, showing that your self-worth isn't tied to their immediate validation. Here's a story for you. A friend of mine was navigating a tough patch with her partner. He'd been distant, and she found herself over-explaining, over-apologizing, and trying to bridge the emotional gap. One day, she decided to stop. She chose silence, not as a punishment, but as a way to step back and focus on herself. And you know what? That silence created space for her partner to reflect, to realize what he was risking, and to take steps toward rebuilding the connection. Silence, in that case, was her way of showing strength and self-respect. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Isn't silence just avoiding the issue? Not at all. Silence is deliberate. It's not about ignoring. It's about prioritizing your peace and allowing the other person to engage meaningfully, without pressure or noise. It's an invitation for clarity, for them and for you. So how can you use silence effectively? First, remember it's about timing. Use silence when emotions are high or when words would only escalate the situation. Second, let your body language do the talking. A calm expression, steady eye contact, or even a slight smile can amplify the message your silence is sending. Lastly, pair your silence with self-awareness. Use that quiet moment to check in with yourself, to ground your emotions, and to affirm your worth. And folks, here's the beauty of silence. It's universal. It works in romantic relationships, friendships, and even professional settings. It's a tool that helps you command respect while preserving your inner peace. Now, before we move on, let me ask you, what's one situation where you think silence could have served you better than words? Drop your answer in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you're enjoying this discussion, don't forget to hit subscribe and join our Stoic community. Together, we're learning how to navigate life with strength and grace. Thanks for being here, Stoic friends. And let's keep going. Number 5. Every day is a win for you. Hey, Stoic friends. Let's take a moment to reframe something that might be holding you back. How often do we wait for the big wins in life? The job promotion, the perfect relationship, the milestone moment, to feel like we're succeeding. What if I told you that the true secret to success is seeing every single day as a win? Yes, every day. Let's dive into this. First, think about the value of small victories. Did you get out of bed this morning despite feeling overwhelmed? Win. Did you take a step toward a goal, even if it was just writing it down or thinking it through? Another win. Life isn't made up of grand, cinematic moments. It's built on the small, consistent actions that we take every day. When you shift your mindset to celebrate these, you'll notice something incredible, a sense of momentum, pride, and accomplishment that fuels you to keep going. The beauty of this approach is that it takes the pressure off perfection. So many of us live under this constant weight of all or nothing. We think if we don't hit a massive goal immediately, we've failed. But Stoicism teaches us that progress, no matter how incremental, is still progress. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Choosing to see the positive in your daily efforts is an act of reclaiming that power. Here's an analogy I love. Imagine your life as a jar. Every little accomplishment is a pebble you drop into that jar. Over time, it fills up, not because of one huge boulder, but because of all the small, steady contributions. Each pebble matters, and every day you add to that jar is a day worth celebrating. Let's also talk about resilience. There are days when everything feels like a loss, right? Maybe you argued with someone you care about, missed a deadline, or just felt off. Even on those days, there's a win to be found. Maybe it's that you didn't give up. Maybe it's that you recognized your own frustration and took a moment to breathe. Wins don't have to be loud or obvious. Sometimes they're as quiet as choosing to keep moving forward. A friend once shared a story that really stuck with me. She was going through a tough breakup and felt like her world was falling apart. But instead of letting it consume her, she started keeping a win journal. Every night, she'd jot down one thing she did well that day, no matter how small. Some days it was as simple as, "I went for a walk," or "I smiled at a stranger." Over time, those small wins became her lifeline. They reminded her that, even in the hardest times, she was still showing up for herself, and that was a victory worth celebrating. Now, let's connect this to relationships, especially the tricky ones. When you're dealing with someone who's distant, difficult, or maybe even doing no contact, it's easy to spiral into self-doubt. But here's where seeing every day as a win becomes so powerful. Every day that you focus on your growth instead of their actions is a win. Every day that you choose to value your peace over their drama is a win. Every day that you honor your journey, regardless of what they're doing, is a massive win. So, how do you make this shift? Start simple. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what did I do today that I'm proud of? Write it down or just reflect on it. Over time, you'll start to notice patterns, evidence of your own strength and resilience. And let me tell you, Stoic friends, that realization is life-changing. And before we move on, let me ask you, what's your win for today? Share it in the comments below, yes? Even the small ones. Let's celebrate those victories together. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to keep this Stoic journey going strong. Thanks for being here, folks. And let's dive into the next part. Number 6. What if they never reaches out? Hey Stoic friends, let's get real for a moment. What if the person you've been thinking about never reaches out again? That's a tough question, isn't it? But here's the thing. It's also a liberating one. Because once you face that possibility head-on, you start to see how much power you really have. Let's unpack this together. First, consider why you're waiting for them to reach out. Is it because you want closure, validation, or maybe you're hoping to rekindle something that feels unfinished? Whatever the reason, it's important to remember that their silence is not a reflection of your worth. Let me repeat that. Their silence is not about you. People make choices based on their own experiences, insecurities, and priorities. And sometimes their decision to stay silent has everything to do with them and nothing to do with you. Now, let's explore the flip side of this question. What if they never reach out? It's a painful possibility. Sure, but it's also an opportunity to reclaim your focus. Imagine if, instead of waiting for their call or text, you poured that energy into yourself. What could you achieve? What passions could you rediscover? By letting go of the what if, you create space for so many other possibilities. Here's an example. A friend of mine went through a similar situation. She'd been waiting for months for her ex to reach out after a breakup. Every day, she found herself checking her phone, overanalyzing his social media, and wondering what he was thinking. It consumed her. But one day, she decided to stop waiting. She signed up for a yoga class she'd always wanted to try, started journaling her feelings, and reconnected with old friends. And guess what? Over time, the weight of his silence started to lift. She wasn't relying on his validation to feel whole anymore. She was building a life she loved, regardless of whether he ever came back. This brings us to an important Stoic principle. Focus on what you can control. You can't control whether they'll reach out, but you can control how you respond to their silence. Instead of letting it consume you, use it as fuel to grow. Every moment you spend waiting is a moment you could spend creating something beautiful in your life. And let's not overlook the possibility that their silence might actually be a gift. Sometimes, people stay away because they're not in a place to add value to your life. Maybe they're struggling with their own issues, or maybe they're simply not capable of offering the kind of connection you deserve. In those cases, their absence can be a form of protection, a way of making room for someone who truly values you. Now, I know this isn't easy. The what-ifs can be loud and persistent, especially when you still care about the person. But here's a question to ask yourself. Do I want to keep waiting, or do I want to start living? The truth is, life doesn't pause while you're waiting for someone else to make a move. And the sooner you take control of your narrative, the sooner you'll find peace. So, what if they never reach out? The answer is simple. You'll still be okay. You'll still have your strength, your resilience, and your ability to create a fulfilling life. In fact, you might even discover that their silence was the push you needed to grow into the best version of yourself. Before we move on, let's take a moment together. Drop a comment below and share how you've been redirecting your energy from waiting to living. I'd love to hear your stories, Stoic friends. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so we can keep exploring these powerful ideas together. Thank you for being here. You're amazing. And we're just getting started. Let's dive into the next section. Number 7. Freedom comes from letting go. Hey, Stoic friends. Let's have a heart-to-heart about something that's both simple and incredibly powerful. Letting go. I know, it's easier said than done. But what if I told you that true freedom, the kind of freedom that brings peace and clarity, comes when you release what no longer serves you? Let's dive into this together. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring or forget the memories you've built. It doesn't mean you dismiss the emotions you've felt or pretend something didn't matter. What it does mean is recognizing when holding on is causing you more harm than good. It's about understanding that clinging to the past often prevents you from stepping into the future. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack filled with every regret, every unanswered question, and every missed opportunity. You're trying to move forward, but the weight slows you down. Letting go is like setting that backpack down, realizing you don't need to carry it anymore. You're lighter, freer, and able to walk towards something better. Let me share a story. A friend of mine had been holding on to a relationship that had ended years ago. She couldn't stop replaying conversations in her head, wondering what she could have done differently. It consumed her. But one day, she decided enough was enough. She wrote a letter, not to send, but just for herself. In that letter, she poured out every thought, every lingering feeling, and every bit of gratitude she had for the lessons the relationship had taught her. Then she tore it up and let it go. That symbolic act wasn't the end of her healing journey, but it was the beginning of her freedom. She finally gave herself permission to move on. So, how do you let go? Start by acknowledging your feelings. Don't suppress them or judge yourself for having them. Accept them as part of your experience. Next, shift your focus. Instead of dwelling on what was, think about what could be. What dreams have you set aside? What parts of yourself have you neglected? Use this as an opportunity to rediscover those things. Here's another important piece of wisdom. Letting go is not a one-time event. It's a practice. Some days will be easier than others, and that's okay. The key is to be gentle with yourself and keep moving forward. Now, let's talk about the freedom that comes with letting go. When you release the things that weigh you down, be it a person, a regret, or an expectation, you make space for new opportunities. You open yourself up to relationships that are healthy, experiences that bring joy, and a life that feels authentic to who you are. Letting go is also a powerful way of reclaiming your energy. Think about how much mental and emotional effort goes into holding on to something that's already gone. When you let it go, you can redirect that energy toward things that truly matter. Your passions, your goals, and your well-being. And let's not forget the Stoic perspective here. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control and to accept what we cannot. Holding on to something that's out of your control only leads to frustration and pain. Letting go, on the other hand, aligns you with the flow of life. It allows you to find peace in the present moment rather than being stuck in the past or worried about the future. So, my Stoic friends, as we wrap up this journey, I want to leave you with a challenge. Take a moment today to reflect on something you're holding on to that might be holding you back. Ask yourself, is this helping me grow, or is it keeping me stuck? If it's the latter, consider how you might start the process of letting it go. Remember, freedom comes when you release what no longer serves you. It's not about forgetting, it's about making room for what's ahead. You've got this. And I'm here cheering you on every step of the way. Hey folks, thank you for spending your time with me today on Stoic Relationships. I hope these insights have sparked something valuable within you, whether it's a shift in perspective or a step toward finding your inner peace. Remember, the power to transform your relationships and your life starts with you. If this video resonated with you, hit the like button to let me know. And don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. And hey, if there's one takeaway you'd like to share or a story about your journey, drop it in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay grounded, stay intentional, and keep building the life you truly deserve. See you in the next one, Stoic friends.